There are a number of reasons why people come here to study Oriental studies. First, a lot of students these days are interested in perhaps working in China, perhaps travelling to India, having an experience of Asian countries and Asian cultures that are now closer to us and perhaps more important than they used to be in the past. So for some people the reasons are really quite practical. They might have to do with future career or future plans for travel. For other students it's more to do with understanding the culture or understanding the society or understanding the history. And in this faculty we believe that if you really want to understand a different culture and society, you've got to start with the language. You can't do it in translation.
The basis of everything is the language. So students spend an awful long time doing the language. It's a large part of what they do. It's almost entirely what they do in the second year, which is the year out. But even as late as the fourth year, they still get regular language tuition. But that's a means to an end. The end is the study of literature, history, culture, and all these things are done through the through sources in the language. We don't use secondary sources, so you have to be able to read the language in order to be able to study these subjects. So that's why there's such an emphasis on the language.
We have undergraduate courses in a number of the main languages of modern Asia. Starting in the East, we've got an undergraduate course in Japanese and an undergraduate course in Chinese. And with both of those courses you can add a second language, so you could do Japanese with Chinese or Chinese with Japanese. You could add Korean as well if you wanted to.
Futanしてくれる?
I don't think it is, but maybe.
I always wanted to do a degree in a language because I think languages are really useful because it's a transferable skill you can use in any profession, any firm. I did Spanish and German A-level at my school. But I feel like I kind of took them as far as I wanted to, and I wanted to start something new, and particularly an Asian language, because I think it was possibly one of the smartest things you can do when choosing your degree. So, and I'd always had kind of a albeit quite superficial interest in Japan anyway, through reading manga, through listening to music and that sort of thing. And so that's when I decided to kind of look into that in a bit more depth and start reading history books and that sort of thing, and I actually realised I quite liked it. And I've always liked the sound of the language anyway and been quite exposed to kind of Japanese contemporary culture, and so for me it just seemed like a really natural choice.
Coming now a little bit further west to South Asia, there we've got an undergraduate course in Sanskrit. We don't have an undergraduate course in modern Indian languages, in Hindi, but again you can add things to the Sanskrit as you move through the course according to your interests, other languages like Tibetan for example. And then coming further west again to the Middle East, we have undergraduate courses in Arabic, in Persian, in Turkish, and also in Hebrew and in Jewish studies. So there's a big range of main subjects offered, and then most of these subjects can be combined, either with each other or in some cases with subjects outside the faculty, with classics or with theology or with modern European languages, French, German, Russian.
I think the students that apply are usually very curious, so they have this curiosity about the human past, the ancient world, and Egyptology in particular has attracted them for whatever reason, whether they've done it at primary school or whether it's because of the resonance that Egyptology has in Western culture more generally. There's lots of reasons for them to choose Egyptology in particular, but they tend to be very curious students who want to explore material that seems very different and seems very different from our own background and our own experience.
Most of the students who come here haven't ever studied the languages that they do here formally at all. Some people have picked up a little bit, some might have learnt the alphabet, some might have done a kind of lightweight course, or they might have gone on holiday and picked up a few phrases. But all of our courses in language don't expect students to know anything before they start.
Well, we get a wonderful range of students coming. Some of the most common entry points tend to be students who've looked at classics, studied classics, or perhaps theology. They start off in the first year doing an elementary language. So they're tackling the twin challenges of understanding the grammar of the language, building up vocabulary, but also, of course, they're tackling a different script system. So I should say another area people come to us from are generally people who love puzzles, are very intrigued at sort of decoding things because of the script challenges.
It is hard doing it from scratch, and at the beginning everyone thinks, oh, I've got to learn a new script, how can I learn a new script? But that's not as hard as you think it would be. Once you've got the script down, that's the least of your worries really. But at the end of 8 weeks, at the end of the first Michaelmas term, we pretty much knew all the grammar, so immediately you can get into doing the literature and trying to speak it.
The Faculty of Oriental Studies has one of the finest Egyptological libraries in the world in the Sackler Library. So already that's a foundational resource. I think just about every book published on Egyptology is here and available for the students to use. And there's also the Griffith Institute, where I'm seated right now, which has a fantastic collection of archives. I think one of the finest archival collections of Egyptological material in the world again, including the notebooks of Howard Carter from his discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun through to records of texts that now are no longer extant.
I mean, obviously being in Oxford is not like being in the Arab world, but there is ample opportunity on the language side for practice, and of course you have institutions like the Ashmolean, which, if you're interested in Islamic art, is an absolute, as they say, Mecca.
We're standing here in front of a rather poignant little memorial that's the gravestone of a young child, and you can see from its length how small she was when she died. The text on the tombstone is in Arabic, and we would hope that by the time our students have reached their 4th year, they would be able to read the Arabic Kufic script on a memorial such as this without the aid of a dictionary or a primer.
For all the modern languages that we teach, there's a year abroad in the 2nd year, and students will spend a whole year in a country where that language is spoken. And for all of those languages, students are going to learn the language, often in a university or in another teaching institution. The faculty has a list of approved institutions for each language, so we've done the work of identifying where it is that you should go to study Turkish or to study Chinese, and basically there's some choice for students, but the arrangements are in place.
Initially I went to Syria, to Damascus, to study Persian, because at that time it would have been difficult for me to go to Iran. So I went to Syria with the Arabists from my year, and I had lessons at the Iranian Cultural Institute in Damascus. And Syria just gave us so many opportunities because Syria is right in the heart of the Middle East, so I was able to travel to Lebanon and Iraq, the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and Istanbul, Egypt as well. I went to visit the other Arabists in Egypt. So the year abroad, although yes, you do want to come out as fluent as possible, it's also about learning to work and live in the Middle East, because for a lot of us doing these languages, we do hope one day to be maybe based out there.
A degree in an Oriental language is a very useful degree to take into the world of work. Many of our students go on into jobs and directly use the languages that they've learnt. So you might be doing that in the context of working for the media, you might be doing it in the context of working for government or in business or teaching yourself. But even if you're not going into a job where you actually use your language day to day in the workplace, we find that the fact that somebody has gone to university and put in the work to learn a language as difficult as, for example, Japanese or Chinese, equips you very well for a wide range of jobs. And the feedback that we get from employers is that these are subjects which impress employers simply because they tell you something about the commitment and hard work of the person.
I do like doing something different. I feel like a lot of people my friends who are other linguists but say they're doing French and Spanish, they're just, I think sometimes they feel a bit like they're just doing what they did at school, but I'm really glad that I can, when I come out of Oxford, I can say, well, I'll be hopefully a pretty good hold on Persian, on the modern language, and also on 3 ancient languages, that I didn't know at all before I came here.
What's distinctive, I think, about the course in Oxford is first that we don't have very large numbers of students in any language. So in the classroom, when you're learning the language, you'll be getting intensive teaching in a small group with a highly qualified language teacher. And as you move through the course, dealing with the more specialised subjects towards the end, you might easily be being taught in groups of just 2 or 3 students who are taking particular specialist options. The facilities here are very good. Oxford, of course, has fantastic library resources, great collections, again, which go back many hundreds of years and have been built up over time to be really excellent. But we're also very well equipped for modern study. So we've got very good language laboratory facilities. We've got excellent IT that is available to students. And for students of Oriental studies, as for all other subjects in Oxford, the colleges also provide very good resources and facilities to make the student experience more interesting and more fulfilling.